want to talk to you today about a concept that I call the pivot. Now, all of us in our lives oftentimes have a passion, a dream, something we want to pursue, and then sure enough, life just gets in the way of that. So today I'm going to take you on my own personal journey and show you how I pivoted to this stage here today. So here I am growing up. I had a very idyllic childhood. 4 brothers and sisters. Look how cute we are. Oh my gosh. We had a great home. We had parents that loved each other, that were together until the day they died. We lived in a nice house. We went to good schools. We didn't have cell phones and all of those distractions that kids have today. We were kind of nouveau riche. I mean, we had a TV in every room. And, you know, it's kind of funny. We were sort of a small family for those days. And people like to think we had big families in the 70s because we had no birth control. That's bullshit. We had big families in the 70s because we had no remote control, right? I mean, my mother would call me from 3 rooms away to come and change that channel. And just about the time one of us got big enough to say no, she just pop out another one. I mean, you look at your typical Italian, Polish, Irish Catholic family from the 70s, 6, 7, 8 kids, right? All 2 years apart, which is the age you learn to say no, right? I mean, I look at those pictures and I think, half you little buggers wouldn't be here if the remote control had been invented 10 years earlier. So then, in 1966, when I was 7 years old, something happened that changed the entire course of my life. That face, that wonderful face. It smiles, it glows all over the place. And how I love to watch it change expressions. Each look became the prize of my possessions. Barbra Streisand. Holy cow. And then this, Color Me Barbara. Oh my God, does anybody remember that? I watched that special. My parents bought that album. I knew every song on that album. I loved her. Here she was. She wasn't a classic beauty. Her eyes were too close. She had a big nose. She kind of reminded me of me. I thought, oh my God, I want what she has. So I went on a path. I was in school plays. I joined the community theater company at age 12. You can see I was a character actress, and there's my first attempt at stripping, and my last, I will add. But I had a plan. I was going to be famous. I went to the University of Michigan. I got 2 degrees in theater. And then, thank you, let's go blue. Then something happened that totally changed my path. This guy, Ned Duke. This man, 16 years my senior at the time, was the most charismatic person I'd ever met. He was my landlord, eventually became my husband, knocked me off my feet. He had 2 beautiful little girls who I fell in love with. So I walked away from my dream of being famous and being an entertainer. We had a good life. We owned an art gallery, and I became an expert on 20th century decorative arts, and I started to lecture around the country about that subject. I even mounted an exhibit at the U.S. Embassy in Brussels. For those years, the lecture hall became my stage. I still had an audience. I was still speaking. And then, in the 90s, 2 things happened. I forgot to say about Ned. We did not stay married. But we did stay business partners for 12 years after that. We were soulmates, we just weren't life mates. And we remained close until his untimely death in 2000. In the 90s, 2 things happened. This guy, Ken Zwislak, I met, sexy young architect, a few years younger than me this time. We fell in love. We had a great life. We made this little beauty who's in the audience here today, Deanna. And life was good. Life was great. So the other thing that happened in the 90s was we closed our gallery, and I met 2 guys, John Bellardo and Tom Hartle. And I went on a journey as was one of the founders of Our Detroit, who I think you're all familiar with. That was a crazy ride that lasted 16 years. In that time, you know, like many frustrated performers, I got into sales. And as they say, you know, sales is just a Broadway play produced by a psychiatrist, right? I was very good at it. I became the director of advertising. I mentored and trained hundreds of young sales professionals. The negotiating table was my stage then. Then something really sad happened. In 2012, my dear husband was diagnosed with stage 4 renal cancer. It was devastating for us. He was only given 18 months, but he lasted almost 5 years. He was such a fighter. And luckily, we got through it, my girl and I. Sadly, I'd also lost my younger stepdaughter 9 months before that to metastatic breast cancer. And 5 days after my husband died, my mom passed away. So 2016 was a rough year. I didn't know what to do. I thought, how could I be here at 57 years of age? I had the perfect life and it's all gone. So I took a hiatus. I took a break. I thought about what's going to be my next step. Over the years, I'd been involved with a lot of nonprofits here in the area in many capacities, either as a board member, board president, volunteer, chairman for an event. My heart was always in giving back and had been since I was a little girl with my dad on White Cane Saturdays, raising money for Leader Dogs for the Blind. So in 2018, I took a leap and I took a position with Habitat for Humanity of Oakland County, where I am still today the Chief Development Officer there. And I cannot tell you how that shift, that pivot in my life has brought me such satisfaction and such joy. Now let's fast forward to 2018. Met this guy, crazy Brit, Dave was his name. He was an engineer, so of course he knew everything. The interesting thing about Dave was that he had been in the States since 1986, but I swear to God, if you heard this guy talk, you would think he just got here yesterday. And he didn't have that nice accent like the Royals. No, he had that Cockney accent. He was from the east side of London, so sort of like if Michael Caine and Eliza Doolittle had a baby. But he was fascinating. He was charismatic. I fell for him. I thought, oh my God, I've got a life again. This is great. And so on a whim, I got this itch. I want to perform again. I want to get back on stage. I took a class at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle. This is from my very first performance. And lo and behold, I was pretty good at it. And so I stuck with it. I was kind of a hobbyist in the beginning, but I worked hard. I got my 5 minutes, my solid 7, my tight 10. I was working my way up. I was having a great time. And then this happened. I know. I won't even go into it, but I will tell you we're still good friends today. Wasn't meant to be. We split right at the beginning of COVID. So here I was working from home, isolated, heartbroken, went through a bout of depression, and then I said, no. This is not what's going to happen. I pivoted again. So I decided to lean into the comedy. I changed my look. I went from sexy Maud to more of a Jane Fonda meets Mrs. Robinson, woman of a certain age. Thank you. And everything changed. I became funnier. I felt sexier. People were responding better to me. And then one last pivot. Met this guy. Some of you remember him from this morning, right? Mike Jeter, there he is, big as life. We did a few shows together. We became very good friends. He was a mentor to me. He taught me that there was a lot more opportunity for me in the comedy world than I had ever imagined. We subsequently became business partners. And in 2018, we produced the very wildly successful Traverse City Comedy Festival. There's a group picture from that event. We had over 80 comics, more than half of which were from Michigan. Our goal is to take care of comics, to give them the respect they deserve and pay them accordingly. This is one of the only festivals I know where comics get paid to be there. Not just the headliners, everybody. And we give them accommodations. So we created something there that was absolutely phenomenal. So here I am now, 5 years after the first time I stepped on stage. And now I get to perform with this crazy group of ladies, including Melanie Hearn, Kara Karachi, T. Barb, who you're going to see in the third session today, and TEDx alum Camilla Bellario. We travel and tour and have such a great time. 30 years difference between the youngest and the oldest in this group, all different backgrounds. And next month, I'm going on a 4-city tour in the state of Michigan with Showtime's Funny Women of a Certain Age. How did that happen, honestly? Thank you, thank you. And I appreciate that. And just last March, I stepped on this stage in this dress to open for Vic DiBenedetto and Eric D'Alessandro. It was the thrill of a lifetime to be out here telling jokes, just like I am today. So the lesson, folks, is that at any age, at 64 years of age, you can still chase and find your dream. Don't give up. When you need to, pivot. to get back on course. Thank you so much. It's been a blast.